The first question, I guess I would pose this to the folks involved directly with the settlement, particularly the irrigators and the tribes, and Toby, you might want to weigh in here as far as the Pacific Corp's position. But in any kind of agreement like this, it's a give and take. You're going to give up something. Each party gives up something, so that overall the package that's developed, they get something in return. So I'd like, I guess, maybe starting with you, Greg, and we can just go down the panel. Explain, your organization, what they give up in this settlement agreement process, and then also what you felt that you gained in exchange for that. Greg?
Sure. Well, thanks. That's, these agreements, and I had a copy here, but I mean, it's thick. And like Becky said, it's a lot of words. Unfortunately, it's a lot of legal words, but it has to be that way. It's binding. I mean, there's commitments amongst parties to do certain things and to give up certain things or take certain actions. And so it's enforceable to make sure everybody lives up to their obligations. I think that when you look at really what we're giving up on things, to me it's important to sort of separate out and say, let's really focus on our need first. Because what we tend to do, and everybody does it, is we worry about the other guy quite a bit. And we struggled for a long time with issues related to the Klamath River and the dams and our views on fish or biology or whatever it might be. But we really sort of narrowed in and focused on what's important to us. Your question on what we gave up, I mean, what we really gave up in this agreement is some legal arguments to the quantity of water that we believe we're entitled to. And this gets complicated very fast because you're talking about a lot of processes that have been going on for years. The Klamath River Basin adjudication started in the 70s. It's been ongoing. It's the largest ongoing litigation in the state of Oregon. And that has to do with quantifying who has what. How much does the project have? How much does off-project have? How much do the tribes have? And what are their priority dates? So for us, what we did is we said, what do we need? What can we live with? What would it take to live with theoretically a less amount of water? And we said, look, if we have the resources and the tools to manage less water in drier years in particular, we think that's better than the uncertainty of no water or a mid-season shutdown or something like that. So for us, we gave up our argument in the adjudication. Well, I shouldn't say we gave it up. We put it on hold pending these things working out. But what we did do is carve out a block that we can depend on, and it's predictable and it's manageable. So people say we gave up somebody's water right, but again, it's a block water. We said we're going to cap how much we divert, and then internally we're going to have to create a process to align our demand with the available supply. And we think we can do that without people getting hurt involuntarily, and that was the key for us. So, there's issues related to the refuge becoming a purpose of the Klamath Reclamation Project. I mean, that was a tough pill for a lot of the folks I represent. But again, we had to look at the practical realities. The refuge is going to get water. They're going to have some sort of water right. So let's embrace it. Let's keep focused on what we need and make sure we get that and not worry so much. So there was a lot of things related to dams, related to refuges, things like that we had to wrestle with and agree to. But physically for us, I mean, it really comes down to the water and making sure we had enough to operate, making sure we had enough that we could do this without involuntary shortages.
Thanks. Steve, anything to add to what Greg said?
You bet. Water is the real secret to it. And what we all gave was we all contributed, the claimants contributed to what I would call resolving the shortage so that we could all benefit when there was times of plenty. And so when we look at the claims of all of the entities within the conversation, instead of one entity held whole during any condition. We basically have a formula or a methodology where we all contribute to the shortage and we all rejoice in the plenty. What we had is we traded the uncertainty of litigation processes, political processes, for the certainty of negotiated process. It's always interesting to me that, for example, we have folks that are trying to litigate for a power rate, and the uncertainty of that venue to deal with the value of that power rate, and they failed because they cannot control the process. When you negotiate, at least you have some control of the processes and you're not releasing that control to others. You basically are sharing that control within the group. So I see what we're all gaining out of this is each one of the individuals that what I would call participates in good faith controls the process. And then if you're outside the process, you have no control, or if you litigate, you have no control.
Thanks, Steve. Don?
You know, not to sound facetious, but the first thing that came to my mind is we gave up uncertainty. I think all the parties gave up uncertainty. From our perspective around the negotiations of the KBRA, we negotiated from the position of our treaty rights that, as individuals know here, first in time, first in right. And we believe that we had a real strong position and argument for, you know, some people say all the water. Why would you claim all the water? Well, because the system is so degraded and so broken and the streams aren't functioning in the manner that they should, we put in a claim just based solely on water. But we've long recognized that what affects fisheries, what affects people, is more than just a quantity, a quality of water and a quantity of habitat. So from our perspective, the tribes, we were trying to put in place what we believe is necessary to provide for those fisheries and to provide for flexibility in water management. There are a number of conditions that we thought were important to bring into the agreement based on our treaty rights and the need to have those fisheries restored, endangered fisheries. And so I appreciate the way that Greg mentioned it, you know, these arguments, these legal arguments for an amount of water. We could try to continue to fight that and defend our claim that we're entitled to all this water because of our treaty rights and the needs for the fisheries. Or we could really work towards viable solutions that brought in the full range of issues that are affecting our fisheries and affecting our communities. So I believe we negotiated an agreement that is conditional. You know, each party to the agreement has conditions, and it's important for those conditions to be met. And so these things have to happen in order for the tribes to have the flexibility in water management, to not invoke our treaty rights. We need to have a restored system. We need to have water quality. We need to have water quantity. We need to have much more fish, as Steve mentioned. You know, so we're not threatened by the Endangered Species Act. And the only way you can get that is through addressing the real issues, like the KBRA has done.
Thank you.
Hey, well, Becky, maybe you can kind of give us perspective on from the off-project standpoint, and obviously there's maybe two arguments out there. You know, you're in one camp perhaps on what's happening and what you feel your constituency got out of the agreement, and it seems like a lot of the discussion here is really talking about really the adjudication and positions perhaps that you agreed to back off on in adjudication as part of this settlement.
Yes.
So maybe you can give us your perspective, and then also I'd be interested at some point to talk about folks that aren't involved with the agreement who feel that perhaps adjudication is the solution to our problems on its own, and that ought to be taken care of first. I'd like to kind of hear, you know, your perspective on what they think their arguments are that make it better than what you're trying to do. But go ahead, Becky.
Well, I think this is a situation where, again, being in the off project is different than where the project sits in the agreement. In the agreement, there's a reasoned path to settlement for the off project, which is kind of a cookbook of how we get to where we need to be for stability. There are, as Dan mentioned, there are two different viewpoints in the off project. Both of those viewpoints were present at the settlement table. One of them, which is what our group, the Upper Klamath Water Users, look at settlement as being just a better way to go than to continue to litigate. And the reason we came to that, we didn't come to that quickly. We came to that over years and years of time. And I think just in the last, just to kind of drive home the point of why settle versus litigate, just in the last 4 months, I've had conversations with 2 landowners that had large, beautiful ranches in the Upper Basin. And one of those ranch families said, you know, we started paying for the Adair 1 litigation. That was the very beginning of the adjudication 30 years ago. And we could have bought our ranch 3 times over with the amount of money we spent litigating. Another man, a wonderful man that is now living in another community, said that he basically gave up. He said, you know, I can't continue to pay, you know, $60,000 a year fighting Indians. And I think that's why there emerged 2 different camps in the off project, or 2 different viewpoints. I don't really like to use the word camps because I think there is a time and a place for litigation, and there's a time for settlement. And both of those opportunities are still alive and well in the off project today. There is a group who is moving forward on a litigation path with a litigation strategy. There is a group moving forward on a settlement path. Does that kind of get it?
Sure. Toby, from our standpoint here,
Let
you
me-
kind of filled us in your opening statement, but
You know, let me tell you guys, when you own a hydro project and your 50-year license is expiring and you're going through the relicensing process, you're going to give something up. It's the nature of the beast. The operating conditions you enjoyed for 50 years are gone, and you're looking at more restrictive and costly operating conditions moving forward. So when we get into a relicensing in the first place, we know we're going to give something up. What we've gained with the Klamath Hydro Settlement Agreement, we've gained another 10 years of low-cost operations and benefits to our customers. We might not have had that given another outcome here. We also gained a cost cap. Our customers' cost exposure to dam removal, if this is where the Secretary decides we should go, is capped, limited at $200 million and no more. And we think that provides a lot of value too. In fact, the Oregon PUC just confirmed that.
thanks. All excellent responses.